Hi everyone, I'm Hossein and welcome to the 5th episode of the D5 Render Crash Course here on my YouTube channel. By now, we have covered almost all of the basic concepts of rendering in D5 Render. We learned how to prepare our scene, adjust lighting and materials, control the camera, and finally create a high-quality render from our project. Now it's time to take things one step further. In this episode, we are going to learn how to create a professional animation from our project. From creating different shots and setting up camera movements, to adjusting export settings and rendering the final video, we will go through every step together. So, without any further delay, let's start the tutorial. To access the animation section, click on the button with the camera icon in the toolbar at the top of the screen. If you hover your mouse over it, you can see that its name is Video. Once we enter this section, we can start creating the camera path and building the animation for our project. To create the first shot, we click on the Add Current View button. Every time you click this button, D5 saves the current camera position, viewing angle, and all the settings at that moment as a new shot. The concept of shots is very simple. Imagine that you tell D5, start the camera from this position, then move it to this point, and after that, move it to another location. The software automatically creates the camera path between these shots and generates a smooth and continuous animation. In other words, you don't need to manually create the camera movement frame by frame. You only need to define the important points, or in this case, the shots. And D5 will calculate the movement between them automatically. For example, I will create my first shot here. Now, I move the camera, adjust the viewing angle, and click on Add Current View again to create the second shot. If we play the animation now, you can see that the camera smoothly moves from the first shot to the second one. The duration of this movement can also be adjusted. The number displayed below each shot represents the time it takes for the camera to reach the next shot. For example, if I set this value to 10 seconds, the camera will move from the first shot to the second shot over a period of 10 seconds. The longer this duration is, the slower and smoother the camera movement will be. And if you reduce the time, the movement will happen faster. At the end, the camera will move through all these shots in order and create a complete animation of the project. Besides that, we can also have multiple independent shots placed one after another. In this case, each shot works like a separate sequence. After one shot ends, the video immediately switches to the next one, similar to a cut between two scenes in video editing software. This feature allows you to create a simple sequence of different views directly inside D5 without leaving the software or even using a separate editing program. At first, this section might look a little complicated, but in reality, it is one of the easiest parts of D5. The only thing you need to do is place the camera in different positions and save each one as a shot. After trying this process once or twice, you will quickly understand the workflow and see how fast and enjoyable creating animations in D5 can be. Now, let's take a look at the Inspector section. When we enter the Video section, a new tab called Inspector appears at the top of the right panel. Almost all settings related to the selected shot can be adjusted from this section. The first option we see is Edit Camera Path, which allows us to modify the camera movement path. As you can see, Shot 1 is currently selected and its name is displayed here. If I click on this option, we enter the camera path editing mode. In this mode, instead of only seeing the final camera movement, the actual movement path is displayed as a line inside the scene. This path is fully editable, and we can adjust the camera movement by moving the control points and changing the shape of the path. This feature is especially useful when you want your camera movement to look smooth and cinematic. For example, if the camera needs to move around a building or pass by an object, you can refine the path to make the movement feel more natural. You can also prevent the camera from passing through models or making sudden direction changes. Once you finish adjusting the path, simply click on Done to save the changes and return to the main animation settings. You may not need this option for simple projects, but for creating professional and cinematic animations, it is one of the most important tools available in D5. A little further down, we reach the Movement section. Here, we can control how the camera moves between two shots. In other words, we decide how the camera starts moving, how it behaves along the path, and how it comes to a stop. There are two main options here: move, which controls the camera's position and movement in space, and rotation, which controls the camera's rotation and change of direction. For both of these options, you can choose from several movement types. Auto Smooth is the default and intelligent option in D5. Linear creates a completely uniform movement. Ease in makes the movement start slowly and gradually increase in speed. Ease out is the opposite of the previous option. Ease in out is one of the most commonly used options. The movement starts slowly, reaches its highest speed in the middle of the path, and then slows down again before reaching the destination. And finally, we have speed in out. With this option, the beginning and ending of the movement are still smooth, but the speed changes are more noticeable compared to ease in out. My suggestion is to try different movement types for each project, because depending on the camera path and the scene you are presenting, each option can create a different result. Further down, we reach the property section. This section contains the output settings for the selected shot. The first option is aspect ratio, or the image ratio. This setting determines the format of your final video output. If you set it to 16:9, it will be the best choice for YouTube monitors and most standard displays. If you choose 9:16, the output will be created in a vertical format, which is suitable for Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. The 1:1 ratio is mainly used for square social media posts. Depending on your version of D5, you may also have access to other aspect ratio options. Next, we have the resolution option. Here you can define the final quality and size of your video. For example, 1920 by 1080, which is full HD, is a great choice for most projects. If you need higher quality, you can choose 4K resolution, which is 3840 by 2160, to get more details in the final output. However, keep in mind that higher resolutions require more rendering time and will also create larger final files. In general, it is better to choose the aspect ratio and resolution based on where you plan to publish your video from the beginning of the project. This way, you won't need to crop or resize the video at the end. Next to the Inspector tab, we have another tab called Template. This section is designed for situations where you want to use D5's ready-made animations without creating every movement from scratch. The template section is divided into two main parts, and each one has a different purpose. The first section is camera movement. Here you can find a collection of pre-made camera movements that D5 has created for different situations. For example, you can find movements such as moving directly toward a subject, orbiting around a building, moving from top to bottom, smoothly passing by a project, or different cinematic camera movements. Using these templates is very simple. You only need to select one of them, and it will be applied to the current shot. The advantage of this section is that if you don't have much experience creating camera paths, you don't need to spend hours adjusting the movement manually. These presets are designed based on cinematography principles, and they usually create very smooth and professional results. Of course, these movements are only a starting point. After applying any template, you can still adjust the path, duration, speed, and other settings through the inspector section and customize everything based on your project's needs. That's why camera movement is useful for both beginners and professional users who want to speed up their workflow. The next section is animation. Unlike camera movement, which affects the camera, this section works with objects inside the scene. Instead of moving the camera, you can animate the models or different elements of your project. For example, you can make a building appear from the ground, trees enter the scene one by one, furniture appear step by step, or any object enter or leave the scene at a specific time. To use these animations, simply click on the template you want and then select the object or objects that you want to apply the animation to. As you can see here, I have applied this animation to these two villas. After applying the animation, a new bar appears on the timeline showing the duration of that animation. When you select an animation bar, all of its settings appear in the panel on the right. Here, you can change the animation type, adjust its specific properties, and control the time interval and distance to change the speed and movement range. The visibility options determine whether the object is visible before or after the animation. while the effect section lets you add extra motion, such as rotate or bounce, to make the animation more dynamic. Overall, the template section is one of the fastest ways to bring your projects to life. Without dealing with complicated settings, you can create professional camera movements and apply ready-made animations to objects inside your scene. And if needed, you can always customize every detail through the settings we have just reviewed and adjust everything exactly the way you want. On the right side of this panel, below the animation settings, we have the output settings section. This section is used to define the quality and format of the final animation before starting the rendering process. The first option is resolution. Here we can specify the quality and size of the final output. There are several resolution options, from 720p and 1080p to 2K and 4K. Higher resolutions provide more detail, but they also increase rendering time and file size. For most architectural projects, 1080p is more than enough, while 4K is a better choice for professional presentations or large displays. The next option is format. Here we can select the output file format. Currently, D5 exports animations as MP4 files, which is one of the most common video formats. The advantage of MP4 is that it can be played on almost all devices and software, while maintaining a good balance between quality and file size. The next option is frame rate, or frames per second. This setting determines how many images are displayed every second to create the movement. There are two main options here: 30 FPS, which is the standard choice for most videos and architectural projects. It creates smooth and natural movement while requiring less rendering time compared to 60 frames per second. 60 FPS doubles the number of frames and makes the movement appear much smoother. This option is more suitable for fast camera movements, showing moving details, or projects where extremely smooth motion is required. However, keep in mind that choosing 60 FPS increases the file size and almost doubles the number of frames that need to be rendered, which means longer processing time. After setting all the output options, we can start rendering by simply clicking on the render button. At this stage, D5 will ask us to choose the location where we want to save the final file. After selecting the save location, the rendering process begins. The software processes all frames of the animation one by one and finally creates the MP4 video file. The rendering time depends on several factors, such as the animation length, selected resolution, frame rate, scene complexity, and the power of your hardware. All right, great. I think this is a good place to end this episode. In this episode, we explored the animation section in D5 Render in detail. We learned how to create different shots, adjust the camera path, change the timing and movement types, use ready-made templates, and finally set up the output settings for rendering the final animation. In the next episode, which will be the final part of this course, we are going to explore some of the special features of D5 Render. We will take a look at AI-powered tools and several other useful features that we didn't have the chance to cover until now, but can be very helpful in your workflow. So make sure to stay tuned for the final episode of this series. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate your support by leaving a like, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the upcoming videos. Also, if you have any questions about this tutorial, D5 Render, or any other topic, feel free to leave a comment below. I read all of your comments and I will do my best to answer your questions. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end of this episode. See you in the next video. Goodbye.